way where I can demask, unmask, demask, I don't know. Well, I had an assignment to share a brief history with you about 35 Scudder, the land, and also talk about inconsistencies with the regional policy plan and the LCP, which is called the Local Comprehensive Plan. Regional Policy Plan is a document of the Cape Cod Commission, and the Local Comprehensive Plan is owned by the town. It's basically a master plan. So I get the dry stuff, she got the good stuff. What can I tell you? We'll have fun though. If you want to interrupt me and you have a question while I'm talking, because I just want to get through, there's a lot of information here, just do that and we'll have some fun. So Kim already described to you how the water runs through around this property. But I just want to go back to the 1800s. I don't know how many people here know that this land back in 1854 was owned by AD Makepeace, okay? And it was their first cranberry bogs ever. And you know that they're the #1, I think they're the #1 cranberry grower in the world now. It was an ideal location because it had natural irrigation all around it. And it was provided by Joshua's Brook on the west side and Stewart's Creek on the east side. And the source for those, as she has mentioned, is Fawcett's Pond, and I, being a native Cape Codder, I call it Aunt Bett's Pond. I don't know where Aunt Betty's Pond came from, but it's Aunt Bett's Pond to those of us who originally are from here. Okay, so he worked, Makepeace worked these bogs for about 100 years. And he also had potato fields there, but the soil was such that it was very boggy and peaty and that kind of thing, so it's not really solid stuff. So in the mid-1950s, he abandoned his bogs and he moved his headquarters to Wareham, where they had a lot more land and space, et cetera, and then because 50s, early 60s, tourism and people started to really discover the Cape and move here, and JFK and excitement and all that other stuff. So the land became a driving range, halls, as we all know, and there's also a little seasonal ice cream establishment there run by the Anderson family, as far as I remember that. And so this land has an agricultural history, and it's always served and function like a natural filter for us. So let's see, so Dunphy's was built in 1968, I want to say, and the golf course was built at the same time behind it. And people, I was telling Elaine, one of my neighbors, that Gary Blank, who's an attorney in Sandwich, grew up on Seabrook Road, and he remembered, and he spoke at one of the very first hearings for the subcommittee, Cape Cod Commission, and he said he remembers as a kid, because they used to row their boat all the time out in Stewart's Creek. He remembers as a kid when they were building that golf course, just truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of sand coming in, or dirt, let's call it real dirt, we had enough sand, to make the golf course, because they couldn't make the golf course structurally over what it was. And that's where it is now. But now, as the water flows, as Kim said, she already told you Aunt Bett's Pond has the highest filtration or level of PFAS in the county. Also, the effluent from the wastewater treatment facility, believe it or not, flows down. And she talked about how it flows down through. So all of that is flowing through, and it's really important that this land, and the applicant even said that they were going to take out 600, it's their number, not our number. We did not exaggerate this number. 600 mature 80-year-old trees would be removed from this project. Supposedly, they've compacted this as much as possible. They want to fill in a 50-something-year-old pond, which originally was man-made, but is full of life now, because you know what happens when you do something.
What's the size of that pond? Because I was there it's very big, and there were like 100 Canadian geese. Sonny was so Saturday at that time.
Yeah, I don't know the total water volume of the pond, but it's been well explored by several people who are available to that. So they're going to fill in with the Cape Cod Commission approval because the Barnstable Conservation Commission unfortunately said that since it's a man-made pond, it's not under their jurisdiction. So they basically turned their heads and have allowed the applicant to build the pond in so they could move their buildings closer to the hotel, which the hotel owner isn't happy with, but he can't say anything. He's kind of under a gag order at this point in time. Okay, so enough about the land. I want to get into, there's a lot of stuff here, but I want to get into the inconsistencies with the regional policy plan, which is the Cape Cod Commission. The way the regional policy plan works is they create a plan for the entire county, and they come up with all these policies, you know, about housing and wastewater and coastal resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happens is each town comes up with a comprehensive plan based on the same model as the regional policy plan, and they get their local comprehensive plan approved and or certified, it's called, by the Cape Cod Commission, so that the local policies basically are filtered down from the regional policies so that they work parallel and hand in hand. That's kind of how the system works, okay? So I'm going to start with housing, since it's the elephant in the room here. The applicant negotiated a development agreement with the Cape Cod Commission, as you already know, and the development agreement asserts that the project meets all its housing goals. You know, I found this astounding because there's lots of housing. Objective number one for housing, in other words, is to promote an increase in housing diversity and choice. And if anybody is a information wonk and you want to look this stuff up, if you go to the Cape Cod Commission website, you need to know that they have a technical bulletin on every single issue that they're concerned about in their regional policy plan. So they have a technical bulletin on housing, and it's really made as a how-to guide, like a roadmap for applicants. So when you put in an application and you want to deal with housing, they say, read our technical bulletin, and it'll say, okay, in order to meet this objective, we suggest, this is how you're going to do it, that you create small-scale housing units, that you create small lot residential development. You know, you need to satisfy one or more of these, okay? That you redevelop existing buildings for mixed use, pursue infill development, or development of vacant or underused parcels, which Kim talked about recently, within previously built areas. That you create a variety of year-round housing types meeting a range of lifestyle and other social needs. That you create seasonal workforce housing, or that you create multi-unit residential development with 100% rental units of 850 square feet or less. I don't know how they came up with that, but that's their rules, okay? So obviously, they're trying to keep things compact and concise and not obtrusive. So how they possibly determine that this project creates small-scale housing units, it doesn't meet one single method for satisfying this one housing goal. All those things could satisfy that goal, as heard from the technical bulletin. Objective number 2 for housing, promote an increase in year-round housing supply consistent with the RPP. And then they describe how you're supposed to do that in commercial activity centers and natural areas. I don't know how they possibly concluded that that is satisfied and consistent, because the scale, the density, the height of the project is inconsistent with existing surrounding development, which they talk about in their parameters here. It moderately sized single-family homes is what surrounds this, as well as some very small-scale businesses, this bank and a package store. And other than that, this is clearly not that. For some reason, the Cape Cod Commission now believes that if this is behind the hotel and nobody sees it, if a tree falls in the forest, I mean, you know, then it's okay, and the scale doesn't matter anymore. It's hard to believe, for me, that they think that that's okay and that this is satisfied because it's behind the hotel and nobody's gonna really see this from the road.